Hello, my name is Alice. And if you looked at me 5 years ago, you would have seen a life built on momentum. I was a senior project manager for a tech firm, the kind of person who thrived on deadlines, 16-hour workdays, and the validation of constant, visible success. I was a runner, a hiker, a relentless traveler. My body was my reliable partner. It was strong, predictable, and obedient. The world rewarded that energy. I believed that strength was something you earned through effort, and weakness was a choice you opted into. That belief, forged in my 20s, became the first, cruelest source of my current pain. The first symptom was so subtle, I laughed it off. It wasn't a dramatic collapse, it was a whisper. A sudden, deep fatigue that hit me one Tuesday afternoon after a 3-mile run. Not the satisfying exhaustion of a workout, but a crushing, bone-deep weariness, as if someone had unplugged my internal battery. I dismissed it as overtraining, burnout, too much coffee. I told myself to push harder. It's just stress, Alice. You're fine. But the whisper grew. It became a constant, low-grade ache in my joints, my knees, my hips, my wrists, places where the inflammation felt like sand grinding bone. Then came the brain fog. The project manager, who could juggle 5 complex timelines simultaneously, suddenly struggled to recall simple words. I'd stare at my computer screen, the sentences turning into blurry, meaningless shapes. I remember sitting in a crucial client meeting, completely unable to finish a sentence. It was terrifying, like watching my own cognitive function deteriorate in slow motion. My predictable body had become a saboteur. The pain wasn't constant yet, it was migratory. One day it would settle in my shoulder, the next in my ankle. It was elusive, making it easy to rationalize. If it were serious, wouldn't it stay in one place? I cut back on running. I switched to yoga. I drank more water. I tried to apply my project management skills to my own deteriorating health, identify the problem, implement the fix. But there was no fix. My body had initiated a hostile takeover, and I had no manual. I started missing work. Not because I was lazy. The word lazy was an insult in my world, but because sometimes the act of lifting my head from the pillow felt like lifting a boulder. The energy deficit was so profound, it went beyond tiredness. It was a physical state of inertia. I went to my primary care doctor, ready for a simple diagnosis, vitamin deficiency, maybe a thyroid issue. I was ready for a prescription. I was ready for the fix. I was ready to get back to my life. What followed was not a brief stop on the path to healing. It was a 3-year descent into a medical and psychological maze I call the Diagnostic Odyssey. The first doctor looked at my perfect blood work and my fit appearance and smiled. Alice, you're a young, successful woman. It's stress. You're probably just a little burnout. Try meditation. Take a vacation. He wrote a prescription for an antidepressant. Antidepressant. I was furious. I wasn't depressed. I was in pain, and I was experiencing cognitive failure. But the seed of doubt was planted. Maybe it is all in my head. I switched doctors. I went to a rheumatologist, desperate for an arthritis diagnosis, something solid, something nameable. They ran complex autoimmune panels. Everything came back negative. You are healthy, Alice. Remarkably so. Your symptoms are medically unexplained. That phrase, medically unexplained, became the official stamp of my non-existence. It felt like they were saying, if we can't measure it, you don't have it. I was trapped in a bureaucratic cycle of referral, skepticism, and dismissal. I saw neurologists for the brain fog, cardiologists for the strange heart palpitations, orthopedists for the joint pain. Each specialist focused narrowly on their own organ system, failed to find a textbook answer, and then referred me back to my primary doctor with a shrug. The running joke became, you're too healthy to be sick and too sick to be healthy. The financial strain was immense. I was paying thousands out of pocket for tests that told me I was normal, while my ability to earn was plummeting. I had to quit running. I scaled back my work to part-time, losing my title and a huge chunk of my salary. My identity was unraveling with every doctor's visit. The social isolation was worse. When I missed my friend Sarah's wedding because I couldn't stand up for more than 10 minutes without throbbing pain, I told her I had a bad flu. The second time I missed a girl's night, I admitted I was dealing with a chronic health issue. Her response was clipped. Alice, you look great though. Are you sure you're not just a little down? I mean, maybe a therapist could help you handle your stress better. The nonstop validation of my external appearance became a weapon against my internal truth. The invisibility of my illness made me a liar in the eyes of everyone I loved. I developed a desperate habit. I started keeping a meticulous symptom journal. Not just a log, but a forensic document: date, time, pain scale 1 to 10, what I ate, weather, moon phase, anything that might reveal a pattern. I wanted proof. I needed to shove this 3-pound binder of evidence at the next doctor and scream, look, I am not making this up. I remember one low point in a gastroenterologist's office. I was explaining the cyclical nature of my abdominal pain, and he interrupted me, putting his pen down slowly. He said, Alice, you've seen 8 specialists in 2 years. You have what we call a somatization disorder. Your body is manifesting stress because your mind won't deal with it. This is anxiety, young lady, not a disease. I walked out of that office not just heartbroken, but utterly dehumanized. He had successfully taken my suffering and rebranded it as a moral failing. I was ready to give up. I had reached a point of despair where I started internalizing the doctor's narrative. I am crazy. I am hysterical. I am manifesting this pain. I was browsing forums one night, looking up women dismissed by doctors, and I stumbled upon a tiny, obscure online support group. They were using language that mirrored my own suffering: migratory pain, extreme post exertional malaise, neurological flares, unexplainable skin sensitivity. One woman in the group mentioned a doctor, a specialist in complex, rare autoinflammatory disorders, who was known for listening to patients with medically unexplained symptoms. She was expensive, far away, and had a 6-month waiting list. I took the last of my savings and booked the appointment. This was my final, desperate throw of the dice. The moment I met Dr. Lena Hansen changed everything. She didn't look at my binder of evidence. She looked at me. She let me talk for 45 minutes without interrupting, something no other doctor had done. I cried, explaining the gaslighting, the shame, the fear of losing my mind. When I finished, she didn't smile or reach for a prescription pad. She simply said, Alice, I hear you. This is not stress, and this is certainly not somatization. You have an illness. She then explained the truth. After weeks of specialized genetic, cellular, and immunological testing, she gave me the name Systemic Inflammatory Connective Tissue Disorder, SICTD. It was a rare, complex, multi-system autoimmune condition that attacks the body's connective tissues and nervous system, often presenting with vague, fluctuating symptoms that evade standard testing. The moment she spoke the name, it was the heaviest, most complicated form of relief I had ever experienced. It was despair because I now knew I had a lifelong, chronic, incurable disease that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of my life. But it was also absolute, undeniable vindication. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't lazy. The suffering was real. The monster had a name. I felt the tears stream down my face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pure, raw justice. I had spent 3 years fighting the medical establishment, my own mind, and my friends' skepticism. And I won. I had the proof. The diagnosis didn't cure me, but it gave me a map. It allowed me to stop fighting the idea of being sick and start fighting the illness itself. It allowed me to finally put down the armor of being fine. The diagnosis was the end of the Odyssey, but the beginning of the real war. Living with an invisible chronic illness is a study in constant, meticulous self-management and a constant battle against external disbelief. The most debilitating and hardest to explain symptom is the post-exertional malaise, PM. I can seem fine. I can even feel relatively good, and then I do something simple: a trip to the grocery store, attending a short meeting, walking up 2 flights of stairs, and 24 hours later, I am crashed. This isn't just fatigue. It is a systemic shutdown. It feels like a severe, paralyzing flu has hit every cell in my body. My limbs feel like lead. My brain ceases to function. The recovery from a simple grocery trip can take 3 days. This is the tyranny of the invisible illness. I look healthy. When I tell an old colleague I can't take on a project because I'm managing my chronic health, they see my clear skin and my ability to sit upright, and they draw their own conclusions. They think I'm just saying no because I value my time over theirs, or that I'm prioritizing a bout of tiredness. I had to redefine my relationship with my entire support system. My parents, who are wonderful, struggled with the truth. They'd say things like, well, maybe if you just ate better, Alice. Or have you tried that new vitamin supplement? It fixed your cousin's exhaustion. They were trying to help, but their attempts were rooted in the assumption that the fix was simple and that my condition was temporary. It meant I spent energy defending my illness instead of managing it. The stigma is relentless. When I park in an accessible spot because a short walk could trigger a multi-day crash, I feel the judging eyes. I look able-bodied, so I must be lazy or cheating the system. When I order a non-alcoholic drink at a party and leave early, I'm boring. I've learned that I cannot control the narrative the outside world creates about me. I can only control the narrative I create for myself. I had to grieve the life I lost. I had to mourn the ambitious project manager, the marathon runner, the spontaneous traveler. That grief was necessary. It wasn't self-pity. It was recognizing a profound, permanent loss. My relationship with my body is now one of extreme negotiation. I have a finite battery charge every day, and I must use my project management skills to ruthlessly allocate that energy. If I spend an hour on a client call, I know I must spend 2 hours resting immediately afterward. Pacing is not a luxury. It is my only medicine. The hardest part is the brain fog. When I lose words mid-sentence, when I forget why I walked into a room, it attacks my intelligence and my competence, the two pillars of my former identity. I now use speech-to-text programs, endless sticky notes, and I apologize often for my lack of coherence. It's humbling, it's frustrating, but it is real. The fight isn't over. It never will be. But now, the fight has a purpose, and it is manageable. I have found my small victories. My biggest victory wasn't getting the diagnosis. It was learning to listen to the whisper of my body before it becomes the scream. It was learning to cancel plans without guilt. It was learning to say, I am not well enough today, and that is okay, and not follow it up with an apology or an excuse. That is true strength. I have found a community, a network of other people, mostly women, with invisible illnesses who understand the tyranny of PM and the gaslighting of the medical system. When I tell them I spent 3 days recovering from a dentist appointment, they don't question me. They say, I know. I've been there. That collective validation is more powerful than any test result. I have found ways to accommodate my new reality. I can no longer hike or run, but I found a passion for slow, meticulous work, ceramics. Pottery demands concentration, but it allows me to sit. It is tangible. It is messy. It is real. It is something I do for the joy of the process, not for the outcome or for a medal. I am learning to forgive myself for my limitations. The girl who once ran marathons would have judged the woman who struggles to walk to her mailbox. But I recognize that the tenacity, the resilience, the sheer endurance I needed to survive the Diagnostic Odyssey is far more powerful than the endurance needed to cross a finish line. My body may be broken, but my spirit is not. If you are listening to this, and you are trapped in your own Diagnostic Odyssey, if you are being told it is stress or anxiety, or that you are making it up, I want you to hear this clearly. Your suffering is real.
Keep documenting.
Keep searching. Find the specialist who sees you, not just the paperwork. Do not let them take your truth. My life is smaller now, yes. It is quieter, but it is profoundly more authentic. I fight for my body every single day, and every day I make a choice to redefine strength. The greatest victory is simply showing up for tomorrow, messy, tired, and uncurated, but utterly real. I am Alice, and I am fighting for my body.